The Cleveland Browns can thank their defense for delivering their first win of the season in a thrilling fashion, nonetheless. We react to it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. The Cleveland Browns defense is Super Bowl level good. Unfortunately, the offense doesn't match it. Andre Szmyt gets redemption, and it wasn't all pretty. The Browns offense nearly let them down again, and the problems may not be solved simply by a quarterback change. We'll talk about all those things and more. I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making this your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. I do want to remind you this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. I would be remiss if I did not start this conversation, this post-game conversation, after one of the most improbable Browns wins in probably franchise history, but also in certainly recent history for Browns fans who have been following this team as long as many of you have. And as bad as things have been the last couple of years, this one stands out as one of the more remarkable and crazy wins that we've ever seen. And the fact that it went in the Browns' favor, because these are the types of games that normally the bounces don't go the Browns' way. So many of you listen to the show that follow this team, you're so used to the pain and heartbreak of the Browns being on the receiving end of a blocked field goal, right? Like the Ravens back in, I think, was it like 2011, 2010, whatever that was. There's so many moments like that. And for the Browns to then be on the receiving end of all the right bounces, a blocked field goal, an interception that sets up a touchdown to tie the game, and then they hit a game-winning field goal, it was long overdue. And so I'm thrilled for the fact that the Browns fans get to celebrate this one. But as I said, I'd be remiss if I didn't start with the fact that this defense, or this Browns win to get to 1-2 on the season and stave off an 0-3 start, was delivered by the Cleveland Browns defense. Like if I could add, I don't mess with sponsors here at the network. That's above my pay grade. I just read the sponsors and use the sponsors so that I can talk about them on the show. But if I could add a sponsor to the board this week for this show, this would be sponsored by the Browns defense. They were brilliant today for the third straight week. I understand they had the floodgates kind of opened on them in that game in Baltimore last weekend. I think that was just so much stress put on them from the miscues and mistakes from the offense and the special teams lapses last week that it was bound to happen eventually. And to have it happen against a Ravens team that's a Super Bowl contender obviously makes some sense. But for the third straight week, this defense was absolutely fantastic and, borderline, this is like the performance from today and these first 3 weeks combined generally. It is like, Ravens in 2000, the year they won the Super Bowl level stuff. I mean, it is just remarkable what this group is doing. And I'll rattle off just some of the stats here that sort of stood out in my mind. Obviously, the 10 points allowed. Cleveland's defense held the Packers to 230 yards of total offense. That's it. 81 of those came on the ground, so under 100 yards rushing. 149 came through the air. Nobody's run over 100 yards on this Browns team through the first 3 weeks. The Green Bay averaged going into that fourth quarter 3.5 yards per play. By the end of the game, that mark only had jumped to 3.8 yards per play after a couple productive drives by Green Bay to get down and score the touchdown, obviously, and then get into field goal range to potentially win it. And we know what happened. The Packers only crossed the 50 3 times in this game. And it was the 2 scoring chances they had where they actually scored, and then the potential game-winning field goal that was blocked. 6 different players, including Myles Garrett, Malik Collins, Carson Schlesinger, Mason Graham, Aiden Huntington, and Alex Wright, all had a hand in the 6 sacks that the team had on the day in general. I mean, that is as dominant as it gets. The numbers speak for themselves. They were incredible once again. And I can't say enough about how brilliant they've been through these first 3 weeks, but certainly in today's game. And by the way, when they needed a play, when the offense needed, when this team needed the defense to give you some sort of spark, which is the one thing that I thought could maybe tip the game in their favor this week, was if the defense actually gave you a play that led directly to a touchdown, right? They gave it to you. They've talked for weeks, really since last year. They've talked about this idea that the turnovers were going to get, they were going to come eventually. They were going to have turnovers eventually. And finally, you saw Grant Delpit bait Jordan Love into the interception. It was a beautifully executed coverage. I think he thought he would kind of run with, I think he was targeting Kraft on the play, and I think he thought he was just going to run with Kraft and sort of the crosser, and he didn't. He stayed put, read it perfectly, jumped in front of it, picked it off, and then took it back to the 4-yard line to set the offense up with an easy opportunity to score. And that's what I mean by like gifting a touchdown to the offense. That's what it takes for this offense basically to score touchdowns at this point, is to give them short fields, give them opportunities where they can just punch it in pretty quickly. And the defense basically hand-delivered you a touchdown, and they finished the drive, tied the game up, and then that set the stage for everything else that transpired. I get that the last 2 drives were a little bit concerning. You let the last couple of drives are a little bit concerning in terms of getting the ball up and down the field. The Packers were able to move into scoring range on 2 separate occasions, and they obviously scored the touchdown, and then the other one they were lining up for a potential game-winning field goal. And, so there was a little bit of give at the end there. But listen, when that defense is out there, for as long as they're out there, when that defense is trying everything they can to keep their team in the game, despite the fact that the Packers ran 61 plays and, they're suffering through the Browns offense not being able to do anything. I talked about the Packers only crossing the 50 3 times. The Browns only crossed the 50 4 times. I guess technically 5 times, but all those times they crossed it, other than the final 3 times, they basically were in the 40+ yard line. And so they either opted to punt, not kick field goals, all those different things. Obviously, the one time they threw the interception at the end of the half when they were throwing up a Hail Mary. So, like, this win does not happen without this defense setting everything in motion, and specifically the defensive line. They mucked that game up. I wish I could use another phrase, but we try to keep it pretty clean here at the Locked On Network. They mucked that game up, man. It was constant pressure on Jordan Love. He could, and then there was times like that drive in the second half that the Packers scored the touchdown on. Basically second quarter, and it was their second possession of third quarter, second possession of the second half. They marched down the field, 14 plays, 76 yards, and scored a touchdown. And when that play was unfolding, you saw you could tell Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur made some adjustments where they were like, let's just take what the defense has given us. Let's just take the easy passes, dink and dunk, march their way down the field, they score. And it worked. And it kind of felt like, okay, maybe there's some give here. But the defense continued to be relentless. They continued to get after the quarterback. They started shutting even those plays down, and they did enough in this game to put the offense in position to win. It's unfortunate that the offense can't complement this group, because I'm telling you, this defense could absolutely win a Super Bowl. They are that good. And they've shown it these first 3 weeks of the season and been let down. And it's funny, like I had a whole column written that was basically about how the Browns are wasting a championship level defense this year and in 2 of the last 3 years, really. And I had to throw it all. I had to erase it all and backspace it and rewrite it because of how the game ended with the Andre Szmyt field goal, which is where we go next. Because as bad as week 1 was for Andre Szmyt, week 3 was one of the greatest redemption arcs in recent history for the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections like Josh Allen, more or less 270 yards passing, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. And this year, they're offering max discounts, which give you easy opportunities to cash out. For example, this week, still coming up on Sunday Night Football here, Patrick Mahomes is listed at 0.5 passing yards. That's an easy play. You play more. and it sets things in motion for you to potentially win this week. Download the PrizePicks app. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I know that after week 1, I was the guy who created the reel that had all 14 kickers that have kicked for this Browns team since Phil Dawson left in 2012. And I'll say this off rip here. It was in jest, obviously. It's just crazy how many kickers this team has cycled through. It's similar to the quarterbacks that they've cycled through over the years. But it was in jest, and in truth, I don't want the kickers to fail here. I want that position to finally be figured out for this Browns team. And let's face it, there are so many wins over the years or so many games over the years, I should say, that would have ended with different results if the Browns just had a reliable kicker. And today it felt like they had that because Andre Szmyt came through, made 2 field goals on the day. He made his PAT, and the one that takes the cake, of course, is the game winner, 55 yards, which is long range, as we know in the NFL, and probably a part of the field where you're feeling nervous as a fan. Maybe the Browns are feeling a little bit nervous because obviously he had missed from 34 a couple weeks back, and for it to transpire this way for him is pretty special. I'm thrilled for him. You go from week 1 where we know what the conversations were after that week 1 performance. Should the Browns bring in competition? It's time to move on. Admittedly, hand in the air, I'll say it. I was on the boat of, you know what? I think they do need to go in a different direction because if this guy can't make 34-yard field goals that are going to cost you the game because he misses them, because there's an argument to be made right now that the Browns would be 2-1 if not for that missed field goal in week 1. And things would be a little bit different right now if this team was 2-1 versus 1-2, and the conversations would be a lot different, I think, too. But instead, this is where we're at. And so you are what your record says you are. But for him to come back after all those conversations, and we know, like, guys say they block that stuff out, but we know they catch some of it. They have friends and family that text them and say, you see what people are saying about you, and there's a lot of doubt around whether or not you're going to be a good kick. Like they talk about these things. And they hear about them, whether it's through the grapevine or otherwise, or because they're on social media themselves. But for him to come through amidst all that adversity and 2 weeks later deliver a game-winning kick to seal a win in one of the most thrilling games we've seen, and again, in recent Browns memory, was remarkable. It was a cool moment for him. Again, couldn't have done it without the effort of the defense. But that's one that he'll remember forever. And maybe it's a sign that the Browns actually do have their kicker. What's funny, too, is, and I was texting with a friend of mine during the game, I was adamant that the sequence before the half, Kevin Stefanski misplayed, where he basically had, it was the interception play by Flacco on sort of the Hail Mary attempt to the end zone that didn't really get to the end zone, and it got intercepted. But you essentially have, it was you're at the Green Bay 43. If you try that kick, it's essentially 60, 61 yards, somewhere in that range. And he wouldn't even bring his kicker out to try it before the half there, down 3-0 with a chance to tie the game. And I was adamant I was texting my buddy back and forth. We were sort of going at each other a little bit because he was saying, well, what if they block it and they return it? And then you cost yourself, then it's like it's a 7-point or it's a 10-point swing. Like it changes everything. What if, he misses it and they have a chance to return it? Like there's all these different outcomes. And I'm like, I get it. But like, if you look around this league, there are plenty of teams that would put a kicker out there at that range and say, try to make it. And then that led to me going down a rabbit hole of like looking up career longs of like all these different kickers around the league. And I listed off like 10 to 15 guys that they probably would have been put out there to try the kick. And my whole point was the Kevin Stefanski's coaching scared because he doesn't know that he can trust his kicker because he missed a 34-yarder 2 weeks ago. And they don't know they don't have the faith in him to even attempt a kick like that. And so it's A, maybe costing you points, but B, playing into the way that you're calling this game and leading to not advantageous situations, like throwing up a Hail Mary that also doesn't have good odds of being made or converted. and then you're down 3-0 at the half. That didn't end up mattering. So my argument with my buddy, I guess he ends up winning in the end because he was right. It paid off that they were a little more conservative there, even though I thought they should have been a little more aggressive in trying the kick. But Szmyt came back and delivered the 55-yarder, and we don't have to sit here and debate that conversation. And it's a conversation for another day, I guess, because he was able to do it. These are the types of stories, though, that make football and just sports in general like so much fun, and why we love sports so much, right? Because it's the improbable moments where it's like, this guy was counted out. He's not going to make this kick. Everyone's doubting him. He shouldn't even be on this team. They should have brought in Young Ho Koo. I know I said that wrong, but that's how I've always said it. They should have, kept Dustin Hopkins, whatever the conversations are. And then he goes out and silences everybody because he makes the game winner and in an emotional win for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that's awesome stuff. It's what sports are all about. It's why we cover these teams. It's why we talk about these teams. It's why we're fans of these teams. And that was a pretty fun one and a pretty fun way for that to end. So I couldn't be more thrilled for Andre Szmyt. I think it's awesome that he delivered in that way, a true redemption story. And it was all made possible by and it was also just a sequence of events that played out to get you there too. Like, you're down 10-0. You go down and you kick a field goal. Then the Packers are on the rebound trying to maybe go down and score to take the lead back. Then they're on the rebound trying to go down and take the lead back. And the defense gets an interception, puts the offense on the doorstep. They go in and they score a touchdown. And it's a tie ball game all of a sudden. And then the Packers go on this march down the field to set up a potential game-winning field goal. Doesn't happen. It gets blocked by Shelby Harris, which I thought Denzel Ward was going to block it, by the way. And it looked like he actually got a piece, and then Shelby got a piece. But Shelby Harris gets credit for it. He's had 7 of those in his career, which is funny because I joked at the end of training camp when he made the team that the main reason he made the team was because every day of practice or every other day of practice, he was knocking down passes at the line of scrimmage. And he's now had 7 of those in his career. He's made a career out of blocking field goals. And he does it today, gets the ball back to the offense. They go on a short little drive. Also, like, the execution of the play with 12 seconds left to get in the middle of the field, get it to David Njoku, run up, spike the ball with 2 seconds left. Kevin Stefanski said after the game that they were kind of cutting it close on how they execute that at practice, but they thought they could do it, and they did. It was executed perfectly, and then you get Szmyt out there. He gets iced, and he still nails the 55-yarder for the win. Just an incredible way to pull it off. Incredible story. And I'll say this, last week, I led the show with special teams, talking about how that group is to blame for both Browns losses to start the season when they were 0-2, and how they spotted the Ravens at least 10 points last week. And then in week 1, obviously, you missed the kicks, and so you lose the game because you can't add 4 points on the scoreboard because of your kicker. And so from there, this week, and I talked about how Bubba Ventrone had the hottest seat in Cleveland, even beyond Kevin Stefanski and others, because his special teams units have been very lackluster the last 2 years, and there's a lot of problems and deficiencies there. This week, the special teams were, as the title says, special. They provided the key moments along with the defense that set this team up for success, set them up to win this game. Crazy, just absolutely nuts how it all sort of played out. The sequence of events was once in a lifetime, if you will. As I said, something that Browns fans aren't used to really going their way or their direction, but to see it end that way was I know for Browns fans a special thing, and obviously special for Andre Szmyt, who again got to finish off his redemption story the right way with the made field goal. And man, what a way to kind of bring it home and rebound from that week 1 disaster where he missed the 2 kicks. With all that in mind, we've highlighted how great the defense was. We highlighted special teams actually being special today. The offense still has problems. And I know what the conversation is going to be this week. There's going to be more heat given to the idea that the Browns should change quarterbacks. I honestly don't know if that fixes all the problems that this unit has. We'll talk about it coming up in the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is none other than the play I just talked about. Andre Szmyt's 55-yard game-winning field goal. After missing 2 kicks and costing the Browns in week 1, Szmyt was set up to kick a 55-yarder to win the game against the Packers on Sunday, and he delivered to fulfill the incredible redemption story and lift the Browns to their first victory of the season. And they delivered the same way Mazda delivers. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like how there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, and FanDuel is making it easier than ever to win when you play your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than following an NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for however you might like to bet. Maybe you're a prop bet person. You want to bet a single or a player eclipsing a certain benchmark in a game. Or maybe you want to combine that benchmark with a few other prop bets, maybe even throw in a money line and build a same game parlay. Or you can just jump on a money line in real time as the action unfolds, either for your team or hedge your bets and go against your team. The options are endless, and it makes every game, whether your team is on television and you're watching them or not, more exciting. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So it wasn't all good. I led with the good. That's the way we should structure these shows after a win. There was a lot of good on the defensive side. There was a lot of good in special teams. I highlighted those moments and those things, but I cannot leave this post-game conversation without addressing the fact that the offense continues to be an absolute disaster. And you can look no further than the fact that they were basically handed their one touchdown of the game by the defense picking off Jordan Love and getting them down to the 4-yard line, and then they were able to punch it in for the score. Now, the one bright side on the offense, the spark that I talked about the Browns needing from Quinshon Judkins was 100% there today. They only ran the ball 19 times. Dylan Sampson got 1 carry for 2 yards. Quinshon Judkins got the other 18 for 94 yards, and he scored his first career touchdown after that interception. It was the exact spark the Browns needed. He had 5.2 yards per carry. If the Browns can lean on that, if the Browns can continue to count on Quinshon Judkins to give this offense a new gear, a new identity, and that can become their bread and butter, there is reason to believe that they can turn some things around and that they can rely less on Flacco having to drop back 45 plus times. And maybe that's the recipe to winning these games moving forward, if they can get that from Quinshon in the run game. That said, the rest of the offense and even parts that contribute to the run game. Sorry about that. But the other parts of the offense continue to. Sorry. That can. Check. Sorry about that, guys. That continues to be an issue, though, is with the Browns offense. And I'll circle back here to everything that I was just saying. I see the comments. Let me know if you still can't hear me. But I should be back now. I see the mic sort of reconnected here. Regardless, the problems on offense persist outside of the positives with the run game today with Quinshon Judkins. Starting with the passing game, Browns only had 221 yards of total offense. They only had 141 yards of passing from Joe Flacco, and it wasn't pretty yet again on that front. And I talked about how the Packers only averaged 3.8 yards per play. The Browns only averaged 3.9 yards per play. So it was not much better than the Packers. They were terrible on third down this week, 4-13 was their conversion percent, was the conversion rate. Last week, they were a little bit better, but obviously that needs to improve. This team, Kevin Stefanski in particular, always talks about winning on third down, winning in the red zone. They were 50% in the red zone in terms of scoring touchdowns. And we know like their one touchdown came because the defense put them on the doorstep of scoring, and that was it. But the issues persist there. And I'm going to be honest, because I know where the conversation's heading. With the way Flacco looked, with the fact that he just does not, he looks like a 40-year-old quarterback back there. And this is honestly, I think I talked about this on an off-season edition of the show. We do so many of these. I can't remember every single thing that I've said, but or where I've said it, because I go on other platforms and things too. But I think I said on this space that I kind of didn't want Joe Flacco to start because I was worried about what it would do to like taint how Browns fans felt about Joe Flacco from 2 years ago. I know that's such a silly thing to say, but he was viewed in such a cool aura, and like he was this larger than life figure after 2023, I guess up until the playoff game. But still, like for him to be part of this magical season, you win the games at the end of the year because he's thrown for like 300 plus yards and getting you to a point where you're in the playoffs. And after all the injuries they dealt with that year, like it probably they probably shouldn't have been in, but they were in, and they made it happen. And Flacco was such an important part of that. I didn't want to see that tainted. How Browns fans felt about him, I didn't want to see that tainted by him coming back and being like basically this. Like I didn't want it to be tainted by him coming back and not being good this time around. So it stinks that this is how he's playing. It's unfortunate, truly. But it's the reality that the Browns are dealing with right now, that he just doesn't look like, he looks like a 40-year-old quarterback. And frankly, part of the issue, I think, with the way this offense is going right now is that he's just a statue in the pocket. He cannot move the same way other quarterbacks can move, and it's becoming problematic because there's pressure constantly in his face, and there's constantly, guys bearing down on him, and he can't make the plays that he normally makes. And yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, obviously. Now, what I say that though is this: like, as much as I think people are going to point and say it's time for Dylan Gabriel, and I understand why. And I'm not, and I'm gonna be clear here. It's not that I don't think a quarterback change might be necessary. First of all, it's going to be inevitable, because if they had lost today, the conversation would have been hotter than ever. If they lose next week, it'll flare back up again. It'll be a big topic of conversation. I don't think they're making a quarterback change after a win. I just don't think that's going to happen. But yes, like it'll continue to be something that pops up, especially if the offense continues to look this way, especially if Flacco continues to look this way. We cannot ignore it. And so I'm not saying that they shouldn't make a change, or they can't make a change, or be dumb to make a change. Like, I'm not saying any of those things. A change is inevitable at quarterback at some point, and it could be the thing that helps change the dynamics a little bit. But what I will say is that the problems for this offense go beyond the quarterback position. This offensive line is playing so terrible right now, especially in pass protection, that I just don't know that there's really much room for any quarterback to have success in this offense. Beyond, like the dink and dunk stuff and all those different things. There's just not the time. And today didn't help that you had the two injuries. Jack Conklin was obviously out. Then DeJuan Jones, who got moved to right tackle because Kevin Stefanski said after the game, he decided to put Cornelius Lucas at left tackle and DeJuan Jones at right tackle because he thought it was what was best for the team today, which tells you that the experiment of DeJuan Jones at left tackle is probably over already, 2 games in. And so he did that, but DeJuan Jones gets hurt. And so then LT Levinston is playing right tackle for most of the game, and Cornelius Lucas is at left tackle. And like, so you already have injuries up front, but then on top of that, like even the key guys are making mistakes and missing on guys. And it's just been bad. There seems to be some miscommunication issues each week up front in terms of who to block, who has who has to slide, who has to pick a guy up. If there's a blitzing linebacker or something, it's a constant issue. And until that gets fixed, like there's not a lot of confidence in this offensive line in general. I had hope that this group could get back to, I'm not going to say I thought they'd get back to like 2020, 2021, where they were one of the best groups in football and they had Nick Chubb and they were running the football down people's throats. Like I understood there was going to be some issues probably for an older offensive line in general, but I did think they could still be solid. It's a lot of veterans. It's a lot of guys that have proven track records in this league. And I don't necessarily fully understand why it's been so bad, other than the fact that they're old and they're banged up and whatever. But those issues are prominent. So I get it. There's going to be talk about a quarterback change. It probably is going to come sooner rather than later. But even that, I don't know if it saves the offense because, there's still a lack of talent at wide receiver. There's still an offensive line that's banged up and is making mistakes weekly. The one saving grace, if you were to go from Flacco to Gabriel, is that I do think Gabriel gives you more in terms of mobility. He can do a little bit more in the pocket, escape the pressure. Flacco clearly can't do that right now, and that's part of the biggest problems. But yeah, I don't know that solves all the problems, even though everyone's going to point and say that's what needs to happen. There's so much wrong with this offense right now, from the trenches to the receivers, elsewhere, from the inside out, that a quarterback change is imminent, yes, but it doesn't – I don't know that it fixes the offense and makes everything better. Again, that doesn't mean I think they shouldn't do it again, sooner rather than later. I'm just saying there's a lot that's wrong with this offense that even a quarterback change might not solve everything or make it all look better in the grand scheme of things. But that's all the time we have. I will have another reaction show for you on Monday, but this one was fun to certainly sit here and talk about with you because it was a thrilling win. It was an improbable win. And most importantly, you, the fan, got to enjoy a Sunday where your Browns got a victory. It's awesome stuff. And we'll continue reacting to the show throughout the week, or to the game throughout the week. If you like what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. For your second listen, make sure you get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Rowland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day. You get Tony Wiggins, who takes you to the barbershop with the smoothest breakdowns at the end of the day. You can find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, I would like to remind you, you can keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs and Locked On Guardians, who are in quite a fun wild card race right now in baseball. But anyway, until next time, it's been real Cleveland. I will talk to you again real soon. Enjoy the win. See ya.